Welcome to The Bank is Open, presented by Pickett Sports, presented by Props.cash, our new sponsor. Happy to have them aboard, breaking down the NBA slate. Maybe we'll get into some NFL. NicLarson, Brian Moran, BrianVsTheBooks. What's going on, boys?
Well, Nick, you take it this time. You deserve it.
I deserve it. Well, I mean, has the Jazz Empire fallen? I don't know. Maybe their run is over. 2-8 in their last 10, back down into like the play-in bracket. So, because it was fun while it lasted, it helps your futures play there, Will.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need a little more help, but who knows? They might put themselves in a position where it's like, all right, now that we're in the play, we don't want to win any more games, but I think I got under 24 and a half, and they got like halfway there in the first month. So that's not a good
Not
pick.
ideal.
We're
Not
20%
ideal.
into the season. Yeah, it's not ideal. The math is not in your favor.
But
We've been doing this.
No, go. I was going to say I hammered the Hornets to miss the playoffs. I laid a big price and I took them on, I think, under 36 and a half. And they, as it turns out, are not very good at basketball. So I feel good about that one. And the Spurs, who are another one of these tanking teams that was off to a red hot start. You know, it's like the fat kid running the mile in gym class.
They're not good at basketball either.
They are not. He's way out ahead. Then, you know, you look back a few laps later, it's like, oh, he's at the back of the line. So yeah, some of these teams' water is starting to find its own level.
Yeah, I was gonna say this. We've been doing this show for like a little while now, and that's the first time I've ever seen Nick look genuinely sad about the fall of the Jazz.
Kings. We still have the Kings.
Yeah, I forgot you're a big Kings fan. They had a close one yesterday, but they couldn't finish out. But yeah, I mean, this has been a fun week. Prayers up for Karl-Anthony Towns. I feel really bad about that. I made a tweet about how Gobert and Cat will never work out and how bad it looks. And then 5 minutes later, Cat goes down with the injury, and I felt so bad that I had that tweet. Yeah, I had that tweet up, but I was like, this wasn't like a tweet post injury making a joke. I just want that to be known. This is just like an actual basketball observation for that first half. It looked awful.
What's worse, that trade or the Russell Wilson?
I was just going to say that. That's so
Really?
weird that you said. I was literally just going to say that. Oh my God.
Can we say both? Can we say both?
No, you got to pick one. That's the whole idea. We know they both suck. Both trades suck. I mean, which one's more damaging?
I'll go Lakers only because bigger market, bigger legacy on the line.
Russell Wilson, he said. Russell Wilson.
Wilson.
Oh, Wilson.
You could throw Westbrook in there though.
It's funny. I was thinking Westbrook, and I was going with that because yeah, we're gonna go 3. If you had to list them, it's funny. The dead cap for Wilson might win it out though because his dead cap.
They signed Gobert too, didn't? Or Gobert was under a long contract.
He was already under the contract though. The dead cap for Wilson is awful.
Right. I'm trying to think of what picks they gave up where, and we'll get to the games here in a minute. There's only 3 of them. We'll break them all down. You get in a position where you're the Broncos, and you know what? You just tank, and we're in a division with Mahomes and Herbert anyway. But if you can't really tank if you don't have your pick, it's I think only 2 years of 2 ones they gave up for him. So it's a lot, but seems like Minnesota's built into this team, just trapped with this team for the next like 5 years because they give up so many picks, and it's harder in the NBA, especially you're not a destination franchise if you're Minnesota. You're not going to sign free agents. You're locked into your situation. Are you going to be able to keep Edwards and Towns down the road here? It's really a mess for both situations.
Yeah, I'm looking at the trade. It was Gobert for Beasley, Beverly, the Walker Kessler, the number 22 pick in 2022 draft, Jared Vanderbilt, 2023 first, 2025 first, 2026 pick swap, 2027 first, 2029 first. That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot. How many picks? What were the picks again?
23, 25, 27, and 29 first round picks. So 4 first round picks, 2026 pick swap. And then Beasley, Beverly, Vanderbilt, and then Kessler, who was a
Kessler they just picked. So Kessler's basically a 1-2. I will say this:
right.
The Broncos trade at least made more sense because they had a good defense. Wilson wasn't that old. You could talk yourself into the Wilson trade. Very few of us when that trade happened were like, "Oh my God, worst trade ever for the Broncos." I think it kind of made sense. The Gobert one, we all just said at the time, like, "What the hell are they doing? Who are they bidding against? Why did they give up this much? You're not even going to win a title. You don't really have a chance to win a title." So the Gobert one is less forgivable, I would say.
I also, in my thinking, I feel like that is a point for Wilson being a worse trade is because Wilson had all the hope for putting the pieces together for a team that was always – because I feel like the Broncos the last few years have been, oh, we have all this talent. We just are missing that quarterback.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the missing piece.
And the Gobert trade, we all kind of collectively was like all said that wouldn't work. So this is more. I think it's more disappointing for the Denver Broncos franchise to have this much of a downfall.
How much is it like impacting the Anthony Edwards? I mean, isn't that what you're building around was Edwards? Right. I just feel like it's a terrible piece to have with Edwards.
And I'll take the flock for anybody that's a Gobert truther. I've been a Gobert, not I won't say hater, but kind of a hater for like 3 or 4 years. I've always been. I mean, I watch enough basketball where I never really understood the Gobert hype. I don't hate him in terms of, as a basketball, does a lot of good things basketball wise that are good, but I've never thought of him as a top 5 center. It's in my opinion on both sides of the court.
Brian hates French people is what we got from that.
If you're top 5, you shouldn't be able to get played off the court, in my opinion.
That's my thing is every single time he's made the playoffs with the Jazz, he sees 26 minutes because he gets played off the court by smaller lineups, and it was not like a one-off game. The last 3 years he gets played off the court when it matters.
Right.
Plus he's getting to the age where he's 30-year-old center. It's not like he's going to age well. And boy, they owe him a lot of money if you look at his contract. It's not pretty, but we do have games tonight. Not a lot of them, but we do have the Knicks and the Pistons. Knicks are in Detroit. Detroit's played a little better. I think 6-0-2 their last 8 against the spread. They've got some injury issues. So, of course, we'll see here before the game tips off who's going to play, which is always the trick here with the NBA in terms of who's going to play and who's out. It's not easy. But, Nick, you want to start us off here? Knicks, Pistons, Knicks laying 4.5 on the road.
Yeah, I'm probably staying away from this game on all sides. But if I had to take one, I'd probably take the Knicks. I don't know if they've said yet if Ivy and Bogdanovich are playing yet. I know they said Isaiah Stewart's back, but if Ivy's out, I feel like that team's in trouble. It might be one of those Sadiq Bey games where he just chucks.
Does he make them though? That's the question.
I mean, ask Kelly Oubre. You never know. It's hit or miss. It's one of those type of guys.
Game time decisions, both of them.
Yeah, they're both
very
game
helpful.
time. Yeah, they've been in this weird limbo for about 24 hours.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm going to stay away from this game for that reason. I don't really like watching either of these teams play, either with what they've got out there. So I'm just going to stay away. If I had to take a side, probably Knicks, just hoping one or both of those guys end up sitting.
That's good. I think that's interesting you mentioned that because I don't necessarily hate small slates. I kind of enjoy them. But when it's a 3-game slate and 2 of them involve the Knicks and the Clippers, it kind of is like the worst fathomable thing for me because those are 2 teams I just hate trying to touch. So I do think the Knicks are a good spot here. You can get the bounce off the injury news, but if I had to touch anything, I think Jalen Brunson is in a great spot.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like Sadiq Bey. I think Sadiq Bey is one of those people where he might just pull for 9 threes, not make them, but he'll pull because the Knicks are just they are so beatable on that outside. They don't really
not
close
a lot of
out
wings
on their
defensively.
shots.
Yeah, their wing defense. They're trying to use Barrett as their primary wing defender. It's just they don't have a lot they trust. Otherwise, they're small too. Like Brunson's small. It's look, they're improved. I thought Brunson, I was probably a little bit wrong on that. I thought that was like a really bad signing. It wasn't. He's a good player. They probably paid him a little too much, but hey, that's the price you pay in free agency. He's a solid player. They're just kind of in no man's land. They're not a contender. They're not going to tank. They're not going to get Gobert. It's like, all right, you'll make the play in. If you win, you play Milwaukee in the first round, you lose in 5. It's like, I don't know what that accomplishes. That regime hasn't been able to get the free agents that they thought. They haven't been able to attract the big names. They're just sort of in NBA limbo, so to speak. What's the term when you're just on the treadmill of mediocrity? That's really what they're doing.
You're the Chicago White Sox is what you are.
The Atlanta Hawks were like this for years too. When they, you know what, they get in, you win 46 games.
I will say there's no sport where it matters more than the NBA. I think the NBA is the biggest sport with how they do the lotteries and how a player can change a roster. Being 500 for multiple years is just like almost the word. I mean, it's so well known that like the Sixers regime got punished for just tanking for years. Like it's just one of those things where a player can change the course of your entire franchise. So being in that limbo is just awful, and that's what the Knicks have been doing for a while.
Do you think Barrett has gotten any better? I expected him to take kind of another step this year. I don't know if it's with the Brunson ad
He's looked awful.
He's looked
He's looked worse. Like I thought Barrett. I've always been iffy on RJ Barrett, and then there's flashes last year where I was like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he can be something. And then this year he's just been terrible.
Every trade offer that involves the Knicks, it seems like that people want Barrett, but the Knicks kind of make him untouchable as far as trades. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but he looks worse this year than he did last year.
He looks a lot worse. I don't know what it is. I mean, if I'm building a team, there's a select few guys, people might hate this, but the high volume scorers that are inefficient, I just can't ever see myself building a team. Like the RJ Barretts, there's just like a few of those guys where it takes a lot for them to get going. Like you mentioned Kelly Oubre, you mentioned some of these guys that are going to chuck, and they might, they might like ground and pound their way to 20 points, but I don't want a guy taking, 21% of my team's field goal volume to ground and pound through 38% shooting. It's not how I want to build a team. And RJ Barrett's one of those guys where you keep hearing his name in these trade talks, and it just, do you really think you're going to get more out of him than you're seeing the last few years? I don't know.
And then you pick a guy that high, it's like, all right, we don't have a lot of choices, because then you lose the asset for nothing, or you just sign into a deal that ends up being negative value. So it's a hard decision to make.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned someone said I'm leaning on Jalen Brunson's under. Funnily enough, I did look at his under 23.5. Someone in the chat was talking about it. He got up to 23.5 for points. And if you know me, I tend to like to wait for line movement to go really far in one direction because you open at 21.5. The only issue is the Pistons hate defense. They do not like to play defense. So it's one of those games where I wouldn't be surprised if Brunson has a lot of dimes, which could lead to lower scoring. So the only thing that restricted me from pulling on that under is just because A, the defensive inefficiency of the Pistons, and B, I don't know who's playing for the Pistons. Like I'm such a lineup guy where if I'm taking an under, I really like to know who's in and who's out. And if you have guys like Ivy out that could match up with Brunson, or who is like some of these guys, I don't like the idea of trusting Corey Joseph to be a lockdown defender if he has to play 30 minutes.
Yeah, I would actually lean towards the Pistons here, but again, it's tough without knowing the lineups exactly who's in, who's out. Any official plays on this game before we move on?
I've got nothing.
Nothing on this one.
Yeah.
I said, the two teams I hate to touch are the Knicks and the Clippers, and they're in both these games, which is just annoying for me.
And it's 4.5. It's 226.5. I was like, why am I itching to bet this game? Usually this is a game I would just easily pass on. You know what it is? It's Tuesday. There's no college football. We've had that transition where the regular season's over now. We don't have those like Tuesday MAC games. In the past, we've had at least, baseball playoffs, Tuesday MAC. Now it's just all NBA. It's all college. So maybe that's not a good reason to bet these games too.
I will say that's my biggest thing. Is that sometimes my big thing with NFL is I like to have one, maybe two plays on primetime, and people have asked me in the past why. And I was like, listen, Colts and the Steelers, if this wasn't the only game on, would you have 5 plays in it? I don't think you would.
Exactly.
I don't think so.
It's a great way to look at it. If Colts Steelers was 1:00 on Sunday, we probably wouldn't, be dying to bet it.
I wouldn't have a single bet in that game.
Exactly. And then it's like, you go crazy with it because it's the only one on. So that's a good point. Warriors Mavericks rematch of the Western Conference Finals last year, as this is The Bank is Open, presented by Pickett Sports, presented by Props.cash. Warriors are laying 1 in Dallas. Warriors have played a little better here. They've gotten on track. We figured they would eventually. They've had some nice wins. Curry's playing out of his mind, and we could talk about the MVP race in a minute, or at least the MVP market. I think it's too early to call it a race. Dallas, outside of Luka, just does not have a lot. That is a pretty garbage roster. I don't consider them a real contender. They just don't have enough talent. I don't have a lot on this game.
You did not hold back.
Who's their second and third best players?
I'm a big Dwight Powell fan.
There you go.
Dinwiddie?
Does it?
He's not consistent at all.
Does it?
Dwight Powell's, he sees minutes at times, right? I've always seen you be very political in your intros, but you just went at the Mavs there, and I think it's interesting that this opened as a PK. I mean, this opened as a pick'em. It moved slightly to the Warriors, where they're at 1.5, but it opened at -110 for both money lines, and I get the Warriors have had some earlier struggles, but they've looked better, and the Mavs just continue to look. What's the word you use? Garbage. Garbage is what you use.
The rest of the
outside
roster's Luka's awesome. The rest of the roster's really pretty much.
And
garbage.
I think we've touched on it earlier in the show. I think I've talked with Nick in other like situations. It's just no one to say it, but the way that they play is it's the Rockets of the James Harden Rockets. That ISO ball, you can drop 50, but you're not winning games most of the time.
Especially long term, you're going to wear your guy out. Like you can't do that in the playoffs. It's just not going to work. There's too much on one guy's shoulders, and Brunson. For people could say he got overpaid. I thought he got a little overpaid, but like we said, he's a solid player. And when you don't replace,
he was so big for that team.
When you don't replace your second best player, you're going to suffer. And I thought that was a little bit of a fluky run to the conference finals last year. I think the Suns, whatever happened in Game 7, whether they had COVID, whatever was going on, I thought that we should have gotten a Suns Warriors conference finals. We sort of got robbed from that. Awesome. I don't know. I just don't believe in this Dallas team. Nick, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I was talking actually with my brother the other day, and he was like, how are the Mavericks even winning any games? He's like, it's just Luka dragging them along, basically. They desperately need another scorer or like just a knockdown shooter because teams just collapse on Luka. Some of the stuff he does is just crazy, though. Some of the people he finds wide open in the corner, no look passes, and then they can't make a shot, so it doesn't really help. But they're not going to do anything in the playoffs. They'll probably get there, but he's not going to be able to carry him the whole way. They're going to wear him out, I think.
And they do have a great player in the West. Has not been great, just big picture. Like a lot of these teams have been disappointing. So who knows? They could win a round. Right. Maybe, maybe could you win a second one? That'd probably be a stretch. But as far as being a real contender, I don't see it. Speaking of controversial trades, like I know Porzingis is always hurt, but man, they probably want to do over on that one. Porzingis for Dinwiddie, which is a strange trade last year at the deadline. Probably one they want over as Porzingis is playing pretty well for Washington.
Yeah, I would say Quan would say he's playing out of his mind after that. What is he at 4 threes in the first quarter yesterday? That was crazy. But the more I do the show with you guys, the more I realize I think I just hate a lot of NBA players. I was a Tingus Pingus hater as well, but yeah, he's talented. I mean, he's very talented, and
hurt all
everyone
the time.
Asked, everyone asked like get Luka some help, but. I mean, like you mentioned, Jalen Brunson and Kristaps Porzingis, they can play ball, and they weren't necessarily working out there. I mean, I thought Jalen Brunson was the biggest piece of that Mavs team. I thought he gave them so much quality minutes that they are just sadly missing now. They have no one to fill that gap. And then you make this big move for Christian Wood, and I get like he's a sixth man, quote unquote, but he should be seeing 30 minutes. He's seeing 25 and a half minutes a game, and he comes in like he sparks the team when he sees minutes. For some reason, Jason Kidd
doesn't like him.
It's just like he's so willing to go away from him.
Yeah,
you want somebody that's stealing money right now. Tim Hardaway Jr. making $21 million a year.
Hey man, but he sits in that corner really nicely
and does nothing.
They don't shoot the three. I mean, they just don't make enough threes. They're just bad from the 3-point line.
That team, like I think they played Saturday. It was the Raptors. The Mavs went up, I think 20 or they went up. No, it was like maybe like 15 in the first quarter. And I was actually out on a date. Like we had date night, like no sports, but I checked my ESPN like alert. I get the alert for the quarter sometimes for certain games. And I saw the score. I immediately went and put a unit on the Raptors plus 9.5, and they ended up winning outright. And that was just funny to me because I saw the big lead for the Mavs, and without even knowing anything on that game, I just bet the other side, just knowing that Mavs are the Mavs.
They're one of those teams
Siakam was out for that game, I think.
Like their rotation, Luka usually plays almost the whole first quarter, so he's in there that whole first quarter. Yeah. And then whenever he sits, they just fall apart.
Anything for you guys on either one of you on this game?
This is the one game I really like. So the only play I have in this game is I'm actually on the guy I just kind of shit on is I took Christian Wood. I took Christian Wood's over in points. I got him at 17.5.
Sixth man of the year.
Sixth man of the year. It's funny. He was at 16.5 and he was trending up in all books, and he actually got to 18.5, and I was feeling good about getting him at 17.5. And then they announced that he's not starting. And it's back to 16.5, which I feel like is not major news, but
he's gonna get his minutes anyway.
Yeah, so I'm not too worried about getting at 17.5, but I think he's the one guy where the reason I locked in at 17.5 is that I feel like I gain more by getting in early. Because if he did get announced starting, I think that would have been like 19.5 almost. But he should still see 25 minutes. And this Warrior team, I mean, they've been playing better, but they still can't defend. They don't know how to defend. Like they're the first in pace, but they don't cover the paint well. They don't cover the three ball well. They foul a lot. So I just feel like this is a matchup where, the Warriors themselves lack the size and the athleticism to beat Christian Wood, because you put in, Dwight, if you want to put in Kevon Looney to match up size wise, you lose the athletic battle. If you want to go small, you lose the height battle. So I think Christian Wood's the one guy that stands out to me in this game that has just a really plus matchup.
How much do you have to filter out the data with Wiseman? Now that Wiseman's been banished, he was so bad, like he killed their numbers. Now that they moved on from him, things look better. Do you sort of have to factor that out and factor that in and filter his stats out and take?
Yeah, they've obviously looked better defensively, but the biggest thing for me is the pace. When I look at it over, I just think that they just stack up so poorly in terms of possessions he'll see and just the remaining factors of I don't think Kevon Looney is that guy. And I just think Christian Wood's too athletic to not have I want to say he's going to have a great game, but at least a decent game where he should be able to, take advantage of the Warriors inside a little bit.
How about Steph Curry? 9-1 at DraftKings to win the MVP. He's played out of his mind. I know the record isn't great and it's somewhat of a team award, but they can straighten that out and get to maybe a 3 or 4 seed or even higher. Who knows? Nick, would you have any interest? Curry 9-1 MVP?
I hate Curry, so pass.
Who hates Curry? You hate Curry?
Me. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Why?
I mean, I'm just sick of his act, how he's the goody two-shoes kid. He's not. So
I will say Steph Curry's
do you have any follow-up information on this?
No, just a hot take. Just don't like him.
He's a polarizing guy. I think people either will die and take a bullet for Steph Curry or they hate him with a passion. It's crazy.
Really? I think of LeBron more like that. I think of like Tom Brady more like that, but I don't hear a lot of people like, I can't stand Curry.
I know people that can't stand him.
Passes, I think, for stuff just because he's the likable guy. So
yeah.
I mean, he had the 2015 finals where, he got kind of a pass for he was hurt, which he did miss some time. So maybe I'm just a Curry defender, but to me, he's just unbelievable. I'm terrified anytime I bet against him. That's usually how I judge these guys. If I'm betting against them, how scared am I? So,
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to knock his ability. He's the best shooter of all time, but I mean, I don't know.
Kristaps Porzingis is coming up behind him.
True. Not yesterday.
Christian Wood.
Put him on a team without Klay Thompson, without Draymond Green. I don't know. I just want to see what he does with it without that.
Yeah, nobody can do it by themselves. I think if you put Draymond on a team without Steph Curry, that's the question.
He'd be better. Yeah, because Draymond Green's Draymond Green's the
30
real
points a game.
Yeah.
I do have one.
Yeah,
I do have one play for this game. I have Wiggins and Luka each to record a steal. It's like minus 105, minus 110. They've hit that in like all but 2 games each this year. So
Luka benefits from his team too. Where not to shit on Luka, but in the steal market, I think he benefits because last night there was a stat that Devin Booker had 6 steals and it was everywhere. And I was thinking, I watched that game. He just happened to get passes deflected into his hands.
Right.
I feel like it's like one of those things where Luka benefits from that market too, because sometimes the length of other guys help him just find the way to get on the stat sheet there.
Yeah, sometimes a steals market's interesting. What exactly a steal is now. Yes. So
very true.
It's very whatever the scoring people are feeling in that game. Yeah, it's very just interesting because sometimes you see a block shot and it's like, oh, it's a steal, and you're like, how?
Yeah. Plus, you could get a bunch of steals and it's not like you're playing sound fundamental defense. It's like you could just gamble and take a bunch of chances and, out of 5 times, 4 times you get burned, 1 time you get a steal. And it's like, oh, you got a steal. He's playing good defense. So
that's Kelly Oubre.
Yes.
Kelly Oubre, yeah. And the one thing I want to say, if Eli has it, I actually use my TNT promo on this game where I actually have a parlay because I love parlays just so much in my bet type. But I lead the Warriors. We talked about how the Mavs are garbage. So So I took them in the same game parlay I had. It's plus 405, I think. So that it was the Warriors plus 5.5. Christian Woods over. I took an all under of Luka Doncic under 35.5. And this is more of my thinking where in the national media, all this talk is coming out in the last week about how Luka has no help. He plays hero ball. I kind of buy into it, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see a game like tonight on national television where he racked up a few assists to guys like Christian Wood. I'm not saying that's like the main reason I played it, because in the other sense, I do think the Warriors sell out to stop Luka. And I took Kevon Looney 6+ rebounds in that because King Loon, I do think he sees a little bit more minutes. He's been seeing a little bit more minutes, but they're up and down. But in a game like this, where you kind of want to match up a little bit to the MVP caliber Dwight Powell and Christian Wood, I think Looney should see some boards in this one. So this is my risk-free TNT promo. I'm hoping it just cashes in the first quarter, even though it's not even possible. But I do like this one for a nice little, quarter unit to win a unit.
How about Curry 9-1 MVP? Is that price a little too long? Is that thing? Or are we gonna be looking 2 weeks from now and be like, oh, it's 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, something like that?
If he keeps playing like this, it would be. Yeah, I mean, he's playing out of his mind.
Up there at 3-1. It's gonna be hard for Luka on a mediocre team to win the award. He's 3-1. I just think Curry at 9-1. I think that's a little bit of a long price.
I think Devin Booker last night was 55-1 too. So it's
you're forgetting a 7-foot elephant in the room for the Lakers.
Yes, that's right. And if Curry wins, we can have Nick present the award to Curry if he wins it.
Perfect. I would love to do that.
Yeah. I don't know about Anthony Davis, but I like that you're still on this long season journey. I mean,
he's been great. He's
on the Price is Right yodeling thing. He's going up right now.
It's good to see too, because he was too young to be this like washed up and mediocre. He was so good for so long. Now he's not like his rangy on defense. He doesn't look like he has that same explosiveness, but man, he's had like best player in the world type nights where you watch him and you're like, man, there's not 2 or 3 guys better than him in the league, which is nice to see, because that's a guy who gets a lot of crap too. He's always hurt, and people sort of badmouth him. It's fun because he's talented and he's fun to watch when he's playing like this.
Yeah, and the Warriors last year did destroy the Mavs, so this is a game too where I wouldn't be surprised if Steph Curry shows out. The only worry I have with my risk-free parlay or my Christian Wood bet is that if Steph shows out, you might see a game where Luka, he might take 40 shots. I don't know if he'd make them all, but I feel like he gets very. I feel like Luka's one of those guys who gets very like, look at me if somebody else is going off. So that's the only worry I could see with that. But this is a good spot for Steph Curry as well.
How about the Blazers laying 3.5 home versus the Clippers? A lot to dissect here with Lillard and Kawhi. Kawhi just, boy, you worry about him ever being like that top 5 player in the league ever again. Lillard never seems to play. He's always hurt with something. Blazers are laying 3.5. Clippers really good on defense. Their offense has struggled. What do you make of this, Brian? You could start us off. Clippers and the Blazers.
This is another, like I said, the reason I hate looking at Clippers games is because it's a rotating carousel of who the hell is playing.
Yep.
At least Kawhi, you kind of have accepted he just isn't going to play. like at least he's good there.
Jaden Ivey out.
Yeah, Jaden, of course. See that, and like that's the thing is like if he played, I would look at maybe a Brunson under, but I don't like anything else stacking up there. But yeah, the Blazers. I mean, I guess there's angles for Anthony Simons to go off without Dame, but even without the guys like Kawhi Leonard and the guy and PG, the Clippers just play good defense. I think it's like one of those teams we kind of mentioned how the Knicks don't close out at all for their 3-point attempts against. The Clippers are a team where you look at Luke Kennard through Kawhi Leonard. They all, they show effort. They close out on shots, and they're just one of the few teams I think actually play decent fundamental defense, which I think gives them an edge. But weirdly enough, the Blazers have been doing the same exact thing. They've been such a good defensive team this year, which is surprising everybody. So I would lean Blazers in this one, but I would have looked at the under, but the under is set at 211, which is pretty right. I think right on the money. I was kind of hoping that the market would overreact to these teams being, traditionally high, like good offensive teams, but I think they know that they both play, harder defense. So I don't know if I could take the total on this one, but I do think I give the Blazers an edge just in terms of being a little bit more healthy.
The Blazers are slowly creeping up on the Jazz and Kings for me. I don't know why I keep watching Blazer games, but Jeremy Grant, I don't know, dude. I don't know if he loves Lillard out or what, but his usage rate lately is crazy. He's 25 points at halftime, usually finishes around 30 points, though. Him and Simons are just, I mean, every trip down, one of the two seems to be shooting. As far as the Clippers, I think they have Kennard out, Paul George out, John Wall out, and Kawhi out.
Everyone's out.
So I like in this game, I like Marcus Morris and Powell 3-point combining their threes together. I don't think Marcus Morris has seen a shot he doesn't like, and with those guys out, there's going to be shots available. If you take both of them to hit 2 threes on DraftKings, you get plus money on it. And I think I might even ladder it up to 4. I think 4, each of them making 4 is like plus 1,800, just in case. But I think Powell's going to get a lot of run, even if he's coming off the bench. There's going to be a lot of minutes for him. And I agree with you. I like the Blazers in this game. I don't know why, but they're another fun team to watch. But it'd be even better if Lillard was out there. But I still like watching Simons. Hart plays tough each game. Good rebounder. Nurkic has been good of late, but yeah, I like the Blazers in this game as well.
All right, here comes Willie to tell us why he loves the Clippers. This is how it usually works.
No, I'm looking at player props. I don't like the Clippers. The way you guys laid it out. I had no opinion on the game at the beginning. I would lean towards the Blazers. You guys think the Clippers are contenders?
Man, they were favorites. They were favorites.
I know. It's been the same thing for 3 years, though. We just never see the team. It's always a hypothetical. Well, if the team is healthy, if it's Kawhi, if it's sort of like they never play together. Like at some point, I got to see it.
Show me the guys on the court first. I want to see guys playing
for like a week or 2 weeks or 5 games, something.
Which is funny because I think they fly under the radar and people hate the Nets and the Nets get all the shit. But
yeah,
I don't think the national media doesn't. The national media does not talk about it at all with the Clippers, and it's almost worse. I mean, I knew Kawhi Leonard would be limited to start the year, but he played like half a game? Like he's like I knew he'd be like, because they made it sound like he'd be eased in, but he's not even getting eased in. He's just not playing,
and he doesn't look great when he plays. He does not look like the claw of this lockdown defender. He looks. And let's face it, he's 30. He's had a bunch of injuries. Even if he's 75% of his prime, he could still be a productive player. But I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where, and I could be wrong. I'm kind of hoping I want to be wrong. Like same thing with Anthony Davis, where it's like the league's better when these guys are great. But like, is he ever going to be the best player in a conference finals or a finals again? That's hard to see. He's just been through a lot physically and can't really stay on the court.
I root for Kawhi, which is saying a lot as a Sixers fan. I had to watch that Toronto Raptors shot. But I do like Kawhi Leonard. I think when he was fully healthy, this is like 2 years ago, before the injuries.
Type of player,
I always would argue that he was the best two-way player in the league, and some people would always try to push back. But I was so sold on him being that guy, and then just injury after injury, and now you just don't even really see him on the court, let alone see the same guy you saw on the court. So, what's up?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I want to hear what you have to say.
If he's talking, it's important. Come on.
Yeah, not really, but I was just going to say, Nick was talking about that threes ladder. Powell and Morris to both hit 4 is 17-1 on FanDuel. And while we're at it, Bank is Open does have a new sponsor presented by Props.cash research tool that should be a part of every prop bettor's arsenal. Analyze the top trends with hit rates for every player and all of their prop lines. Props.cash is super easy to use. I'm sure everybody, all three of these guys are using it every day to give you guys picks. It even gives you top trends against all of the games every day. Head over to props.cash and use code GOLDBOYS25 with a capital G. It is case sensitive for 25% off of your first month.
25% off. That's pretty good. That's almost a quarter off. That's not bad.
That's more than 24%. That's a good deal. I actually texted Pete from Props.cash to see if he'd give me a bonus if I wore this hat on the show. And he didn't answer me, so I think it's kind of a yes.
That's definitely a yes. He didn't say no.
He didn't say no. That's what I was thinking. Like I knew he blocked my number weeks ago, so I knew. I responded. I texted him, said, "Say nothing if you give me $100 to wear this." And I knew he had my number blocked, so now legally he owes me $100. But no, it is a great tool.
Absolutely a must-have if you're betting props. It is definitely a cheat code. That's props.cash. Any best bets for you guys in terms of this game? Do you want to just sort of summarize all your best bets for the night before I don't know, maybe we get into some football thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start. I'm on Christian Wood. I'm on his over. I have the risk-free parlay. I mentioned before the show. I mentioned during the show. I don't necessarily love the other two games in terms of injury news and the fact that I hate the Knicks and the Clippers with a passion. So I would lean, like, if anything, I don't really play sides. If anything, I like the Blazers in that other game. But besides my Christian Wood bet, I might just watch some basketball, look for some live spots, maybe get either the Blazers or the Warriors live if they go down. But that's my two looks for these last two games.
And then I have Wiggins and Luka each to get a steal in that game, and then the Powell Morris threes ladder in the Clippers game.
And I'm going to take I'm not going to take the Pistons just because the injuries and Ivy. I will take you guys talked me into the Blazers against what's left of the Clippers. I'll lay the 3.5. With Portland, and I'd like Curry 9 to 1 MVP. I just think look up a month from now, and again, you're tying up your money for a long time. Bet that may or may not hit, so you got to take that into account. But I just think that is a good price. It might be the best price you see all season. Before we get out of here, anything you guys have bet? Nick, you can start. Anything you bet for the NFL this week coming up yet, or not yet?
I have not bet anything on the NFL yet. To be honest, I've just started looking at it. We got Bills and Patriots Thursday.
Good game.
Dude, you sound like you're just over. Are you ready for bed, man?
No, I'm not.
Are you still mad about the Jazz?
I'm still a little upset about the Jazz. Yes, 2-8 in their last 10. Come on.
Like you see, well, I don't know. I was crying. You just look like you're like, dude, I don't fucking know. Like the Jazz aren't even winning games. Do you want me to talk about the NFL?
Danny Ainge isn't that bummed down. Danny Ainge isn't minding it at all. He's
he's happy now.
And now NicLarson's over here, like suicide watch.
Yeah, it should be a good game though. Thursday, Bills Patriots.
But nothing in pocket yet.
Nothing in pocket yet. Probably a must win for New England, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You would believe so. I mean, and the Bills have been beatable. I mean, the Lions. Oh, you had the Lions last week, didn't you? I
had
took
the Lions money line too, and I had I got Dolphins to win the division. Even the Browns a couple weeks ago dropped a couple touchdowns. They fumbled. The Bills didn't get a first down in that Browns game till like 6 minutes left in the first half. The Bills have been shaky. Allen's been shaky. I guess there's a flu going through the team. I think that number is going to keep coming down. We're down to 4.5, and we'll be on Thursday to discuss that game. Brian, anything else you bet? Just NFL, whether it's Sunday, anything?
So I haven't taken anything yet, but the one thing I would look at is I was gonna give Josh Allen rushing yards a big look. I took it last week. He's 42.5 again. There is something for me with, how efficient he's been as a runner, but the Patriots run the second most man coverage in the entire league. And I love targeting mobile quarterbacks against teams that run a lot of man coverage, just because if you're in that scramble mode and you have that man coverage looks over zone, there's just so many more running lanes for these kind of guys. I did it last night with Kenny Pickens, with Pickett. But so that's the one early look I have is I like Josh Allen's rushing because I just like to attack these teams that run 40-50% man, because on these third down dropbacks, those scrambles can be dangerous. And you saw Josh Allen last week take off for, I think, 1 or 2 20-yard runs. He's just so talented in that.
On that Josh Allen rushing, are either of you guys scared of him getting hurt with as much as he takes hits? I feel like he takes a lot of hits.
I think he's one of those guys where he's such a big-bodied person that I don't think he realizes that sometimes you can't hero Superman dive on a first down, maybe third down in a close game.
Right. But I just feel like he exposes himself an awful lot.
Oh, look at the prop side cash, little thing we have on our screen. Wow, it's so I can't really read it, but it's a lot of green if you can't tell.
I did just get a message here about Brian that's very unfortunate. You're not allowed to say man coverage anymore. You're supposed to say he or him coverage. You can't be that comfortable with the pronouns.
Who said that? It's sorry.
It's undisclosed, but you can't say stuff like that anymore. It's not man coverage. It's person coverage.
Did I just get canceled by saying man-to-man coverage and talking about NFL?
Oh my God, you said it again, dude. Come on. It's so insensitive.
I honestly, if I was ever to get canceled for these streams, that'd be the way to go for me, is to talk about NFL coverages.
Him coverage.
Yeah, but that's the one look I have, and I was hoping it's 42.5 right now. That might be one I bet just by looking at the number because he's been great. And especially his elbow is kind of just like noodle arm right now. Let him take off a little bit more.
We saw what Fields did to New England a month or so ago on Monday night.
Yeah.
Belichick defenses usually struggle with running quarterbacks, like you mentioned. A couple I'm looking at. I had been down on Minnesota, but man, 3-point favorites at home against the Jets. Mike White going on the road now. I like White, but going on the road, that could be a tough spot. So I like Minnesota at 3. I think probably that closes 3.5, maybe 4. And the other one is just kind of a square play. Over 52.5 Chiefs Bengals. To me, that's just every time those teams play, it's like 31-28, 34-31. That's one where you don't overthink it. You're going to see plenty of points. You're going to see these teams try to match each other. So I would expect that one to close to 53.5, 54. I think that'll be one-way traffic for the over. And I've just come to the point. I had a good week betting NFL last week. I've come to the point. The only thing we have is as bettors that we can do bet in the NFL. Try to predict the line movement, be savvy with the line movement, get the best of the number, and just try to win that way. Once the ball kicks off, man, there is so much luck in this league. There's so much parity. You're at the mercy of the gambling gods once that ball kicks off.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want you to go. I was just going to make a quick comment to say, I'm glad you said that because I see that Josh Allen's 44.5 everywhere but FanDuel. So I might take that 42.5 and post it in the Discord. Yeah. Because I think that's going to be one that might close over that 45. I always say the 5s and 10s for rushing yards are my big keys. So I don't want to move it past that.
What do you guys got on Dolphins 49ers? That's probably one of the biggest games.
I would lean San Fran just with Armstead out. I feel like Tua, all this production has come against bad teams in comfortable environments at Detroit. Now this is a test where he's on the road against a good defense. San Fran might be the best team in the league. San Fran is absolutely loaded. I would lean San Fran. I'm not crazy about laying 4 though.
Yeah, 3.5. It's a tough number. But I do have a theory. It's not a theory, but it's a general rule I follow that if a team's 3.5, they usually win.
Yeah,
because everyone's the Dolphins are by within a field goal. That's not necessarily always the truth, but I do feel like sometimes those 3.5 lines are kind of telling because
nobody wants to lay 3.5.
And I think Vegas is totally fine. It shows that the line setters are okay with people flocking that 3.5 for the favorited team. They're not favorited, but like people love the Dolphins.
Yep. And I hate laying 3.5, man. I just hate laying 3.5. It's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable 3 hours when you're laying that 3.5.
Yeah.
It's also crazy to see either Washington or New York is going to have 8 wins after this, unless they tie.
Yeah, and the as an Eagles fan, it makes complete sense that the one year we go 10-1, we are still
everyone else is good.
We're still in a situation where if we go 500 the rest of the way, we might be in a wild card situation.
Exactly.
Nah, you should be all right. I mean, that's a game you should win. I mean, that's a division you should win. That's this week too, right? Cowboys, Eagles.
Cowboys, Colts.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Eagles, Titans. Then is it Cowboys, Colts in 2 weeks?
It's it's Giants, Eagles in 2 weeks. I know that because I'm going.
Oh, maybe they play on Christmas Eve.
They play on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Okay. Which is just brilliant scheduling by the NFL. That game is going to be watched by I think everybody. That's going to be a huge game.
Well, you don't think it will be?
I think it will be. No, I'm just saying I'm being actually sincere.
Oh,
I think that's going to be a very meaningful game on Christmas Eve night. That's going to be a big game.
Well, first of all, it's an important game. Second of all, it's an excuse to just sort of get away from your family for a little bit. So it's serving 2 purposes.
That's what happens.
All right, boys. I think we covered it. The bank is open. Pickett Sports, props.cash. Good luck with all your plays. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to retweet the show. Tell your friends about it. Anything you do, help us promote it. We would appreciate it. I think we're gonna have some promos and some giveaways coming up soon. So, thank you guys for listening, boys. Appreciate it as always. Thanks.
Thank you.